welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for The Dish Ran Away with the Spoon, released in 1933. It's the 62nd in the series and it's directed by Rudolph Ising. You can find this on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 6 DVD set. There is a HD version out there, which someone has given to me, and looks pretty good considering, the cartoon itself. So in case you haven't seen this one, well, if you've seen one harmonizing Merrie Melodies short, you've pretty much seen them all, but pretty much we're at a shop, the dishes and utensils are alive, and we see a little bit of a romance in the middle, and we get a villain towards the end. So, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Now, what you're going to see, first of all, is a re-edit of the original audio commentary I did before I had to take that down due to a request by Warner Brothers. After that, you'll hear some new thoughts from me, and then you'll hear from my good friend Manny Cruz, the Toonie tenor, who's going to discuss the music in this short, as it is a Merrie Melodies short. So grab some popcorn and enjoy. And it's really nicely restored. While the cartoon didn't end up particularly my fancy, it really looks good, especially when it's restored like this. I mean, look at all the raindrops. I mean, yes, they, of course, reuse the same animation of the raindrops again and again, but it still looks pretty good. Though I've got to say, I really, really wish that my kitchen utensils would be doing this. I mean, look at that. Just washing themselves, cleaning themselves. Now, that would be something now, wouldn't it? So this one is one of the last few Merrie Melodies shorts done with Hugh Harman and Rudolph Ising. And as you can see, yeah, it's one strange cartoon. I mean, yeah, if you look at that animation there, really weird. But as you come to expect, nothing really happens until the last third, where there's a bad guy that appears, and then they battle against the bad guy, and see you later. But look, I like that they tried something different with their faces here. So the outlines are all enhanced, and then the faces are more faded grey. And I have to say, I like the look. Yeah, no time for baby yet. He's not. He doesn't seem thrilled about the idea of having a baby, but it's also strange how the title of this cartoon is The Dish Ran Away with the Spoon, but there's not really too much focus on the dish and the spoon as a couple. There's just a lot of dancing and all sorts of crazy stuff happening with all the utensils, and that's it. It'll be interesting to see how the new studio, once harmonizing, stopped making cartoons for Leon Schlesinger, if they follow the same formula or if they just go off and do something new. And that's why I like doing these commentaries. I mean, sure, they get, as I mentioned, formulaic at times, and you feel like you're watching the same thing over and over, but it's good to see how things evolve, and I'll be very keen to see just the different types of Merrie Melodies that are done once harmonizing leave the picture. But this animation here, I mean, we've got a monster here. It's just some old dough that just has yeast and just becomes evil. Well, okay then, sure, why not? And we're in the last, I think, minute and a half, and then now the villain comes in. And as you can imagine, the utilities are all going to fight back. Then you use whatever they have at their disposal. In previous shorts, you had like pencils being thrown in the news agency with the pulp magazines. And here, of course, it's going to be food-related items. So those are my original thoughts, and I've got a few more here. I mean, I know for those of you who are hoping for a, 1 hour and a half epic review on this particular short, sadly, you're out of luck here. I know, it's disappointing. I don't like letting people down, but hey, it happens from time to time. But I mentioned in the track about how I wasn't sure if the Schlesinger Merrie Melodies would continue on the same path or do its own thing. Well, I since found out, since obviously I covered all those shorts a while back, yeah, they pretty much do the same thing. But it's not really surprising. You've got Friz Freleng involved at the harmonizing studio, and he was known to even have an uncredited co-directing credit on a few of the Bosco shorts. So he would have been around, of course, to see the end product of these Merrie Melodies. And once he started directing them, no doubt he would have just used the formula that was actually successful for these type of films. I mean, that's why they kept making them. I mean, if the Merrie Melodies didn't do well, why would they keep making them? The audiences were definitely eating them up. It's the time of the Great Depression, and people wanted to get cheered up, so they would watch these shorts like, hey, got some great music happening, happy characters bouncing around everywhere. So it's definitely a product of its time, and Freeze will just continue that once he actually directs the Merrie Melodies over at the Schlesinger studio. Now, the title itself, yes, the line, "The dish ran away with the spoon," is part of the song that's featured in this track, which, again, my friend Manny Cruz will get into very shortly, but the line comes from an English nursery rhyme called Hey Diddle Diddle, and that's been around for hundreds of years, and some have even said it's possibly been around even for 1,000 years in like a different form. There'll be pictures of cats with, hats and, all sorts of stuff on that nursery rhyme. But yeah, that's where the line originally came from, and they just obviously took that famous line and put it into a song. Now, there is a composer here, and even Manny in his track couldn't figure it out because it looks like it's Leopold Stokowski, but I'm not convinced. I think it's somebody else. I think there was some kind of a Polish or Hungarian pianist around this time, and I was looking for who that would be, and I couldn't for the life of me figure it out. So if you know the answer, definitely let me know, because I'm definitely curious about it. So, I guess part of the humor of this one, I do find this one, I guess, a charming short, and part of the charm, of course, is dun da da da, dad jokes. Yes, yes, gotta love the dad jokes and all the puns in here. We get, of course, a baby spoon, haha. We get even more dad jokes, like a yodeling Swiss cheese, and of course, blue ink. I think it's ink or some sort, or maybe food dye. I'm not sure. If you know what it is, let me know in the comments as well. But of course, we're singing "Am I Blue?" And of course, I know that's my editor's Blue's favorite joke, right? Although what's creepy is that when you see the egg sort of crack and we see a live chicken there, it's like, well, why would that be in the egg carton? I would hate to think one morning when I'm making eggs and out comes a live chicken. Yeah, I won't go any further than that, but it is kind of weird when you see jokes like that. Now, my good friend Blue, who actually edits these redos for me, he's an avid early horror movie buff, and I do want to ask him, when the dough transforms into this monster after having yeast, that reminds me of Dr. Jekyll, or Dr. Jekyll, depending on who you ask, and Mr. Hyde. Is that true?
Hey everyone, I'm the snarky blue text you see in all of these redos, and while I don't usually record my own dialogue for this, frankly Anthony doesn't pay me enough, the situation felt special enough, as a reason to ramble about early 20th century monster movies isn't something that comes up too often. I'll try to keep this brief, but I was a little hesitant to call this specifically a reference to the 1932 film starring Frederick March. But I went into it, and I'm willing to discuss it a little bit. Obviously, the timeline adds up, with that film being released in 1932, and this short in 1933. But you need to be careful saying something is an adaptation of something specific. By 33, there were multiple adaptations, even just in film, of the Jekyll and Hyde story. The reason I'm going to say it's a reference, though, is right here. When this evil-looking snowman wannabe, he just looks like a snowman to me, holds his neck and peers at the audience, which is something that's iconic from the Frederick March version. His movements and mannerisms aren't exactly the same. I kind of just chalk that up to the fact that movies weren't available at home. So for the most part, mismemory is something that could have easily have taken effect here. It's not like they had a print of the film to rotoscope. I also want to point out, just to be clear, I did take a look at the famous 1920 John Barrymore version, since I felt that if it was taking from anything, it was either the 1920 silent version or the sound version that had just came out. I hadn't seen it before, but honestly, the Barrymore version is very different, and it gave me this funny little screen grab, so there you go. I know my logic is pretty baseless here. Honestly, it could just be a reference to the book or any other sort of things, like a play or something. But the fact is, it's extremely close to when the film would have been topical, and Frederick March's portrayal of the transformation sequence was extremely highly praised. especially in its time. For many years, it wasn't known how they pulled off such a technical feat, and the film is one of the very few horror movies released in Hollywood that has won an Academy Award. For it to win one back then, even, is still an achievement to be said. Even if it isn't one to one with the film, with how he moves around afterwards, I just chalk that up to just having to recreate it from memory. Anyhow, I probably bored a lot of you who are just here for cartoons, but if you are interested in more monster movie discussions, pay attention to my channel, specifically this October. Anyways, I return you to your boring dad joke cartoon I'm also editing, and remember to tell Anthony I deserve a raise. See ya!
So yeah, there's really not much to this in terms of extra trivia, so I'm going to bring you over now to my good friend Manny Cruz, the Toonie Tenor, who is an expert in music. He's going to go through the tracks in this short, which unusually it has the title song you hear in the beginning, but then you just hear it instrumentally here and there, but then you hear more of the other songs that were previously featured in other Merrie Melodies. But in any case, I'll let my good friend take it from here. So take it away, Manny.
Hi, everyone. This is Manny Cruz, the Toonie Tenor, coming at you with my latest version, or rather edition, of It's Time for Manny's Music Time with music trivia for you today. Wow, that was terrible. Should I do that again? Nah. All right. For the 1933 Merrie Melody cartoon, The Dish Ran Away with the Spoon, directed by Rudy Ising. So, this is one of the final cartoons to come out of the harmonizing studio before Leon Schlesinger Productions takes over midway through 1933, and we get through a lot of buddy cartoons very soon, and you can't tell how excited I am.
I'll be right over.
Manny.
Yippee skip. So let's let's talk about this cartoon in particular. So what's kind of music is in this cartoon? So for starters, of course, we have Get Happy, the Merrie Melodies theme, and within a few seconds, we get to the title track, The Dish Ran Away with the Spoon.
No one ever knew what love could do till the dish ran away with the spoon. On a rainy day, the plates they play and they dance to a sweet little tune.
We also hear a little bit of Shuffle Off the Buffalo. Am I Blue?
Am I blue? Am I blue?
Ain't these tears in my eyes telling you?
Young and Healthy.
I'm young and healthy, and I've got charm.
And We're on the March. So one thing I liked about in particular in this cartoon, there was a part where there was, I forgot what utensil it was, I should have wrote it down, but had long hair, wig, kind of reminds me of Leopold Tsukowski, or not Tsukowski, there's another person that I'm trying to think of. It was a piano player, and I should have this in front of me, but I don't. Shame on me. But anywho, famous piano player from that time period, and he starts playing the knives kind of like an instrument. And what instrument is that in particular? It is the sound of a celeste. Celeste is like a mini keyboard that's attached to think of like a glockenspiel, a metallic xylophone, so to speak. Whenever I think of the celeste in particular, I think of Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy from the Nutcracker. Probably the most famous piece of music ever written that features the celeste. In the cartoon itself, when the spoon starts singing, he sings I'll Take an Option on You. And then the dish starts singing a little bit of Shuffle Off the Buffalo, which I've talked about in a previous commentary. So, real quick about those two songs in particular, and I want to give a lot of credit to James Parton for his needle drop notes on cartoon research for this information. I quote, "The title song from The Dish Ran Away with the Spoon is not known to have been commercially recorded by anyone. Several familiar songs from Warner Brothers cartoons and features appear in this cartoon, including Shuffle Off the Buffalo and Young and Healthy, both from 42nd Street," unquote. So those two in particular that I mentioned, Shuffle Off the Buffalo and Young and Healthy, which was done by the team of Al Dubin and Harry Warren, I spoke about them in previous commentaries. Please listen to those for Shuffle Off the Buffalo and Young and Healthy. Resuming on from what he wrote, and I quote, "Another song used in this cartoon is I'll Take an Option on You, which has been recorded a few months earlier in that year, 1933, by Ted Fiorito on Brunswick Records, with the vocals by his regular singer, Muzzy Marcellino. The song was written for a stage review, but two of its writers were Leo Robin and Ralph Rainger, staff composers for Paramount Pictures. It's possible that famous music Paramount's publishing unit, and also part of the name of Famous Studios got its name from the Famous Players, an original name for Paramount. But anyway, I digress. So once again, it's possible that Famous Music, Paramount's publishing unit, was the original publisher. And there was an attempt to revive the song a few years later by Dorothy Lamour, unquote. So yeah, this cartoon is very heavy on the title track, different permutations and arrangements of it based off the work of Frank Marsalis, who will be leaving the studio very soon, and he'll be replaced by Norman Spencer as musical director for from Harmonizing to Leon Schlesinger Productions. And again, during that scene when the two characters are wooing each other, they go between those two different songs, which is pretty interesting. It's a nice little segue. At first, I didn't even notice it until I listened to I'll Take an Option on You, because I recognize the melody of Shuffle Off the Buffalo very easily, but it was a little subtle how they snuck in I'll Take an Option on You. Also, what I want to mention is Am I Blue is also featured in this cartoon, the scene where the potatoes start crying. And I believe it's a bottle of blue dye. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I mentioned before, Young and Healthy. Thought it was very clever when the egg was rolling and it broke, and then a chick came out, started Young and Healthy. And then the antagonist of the cartoon, that weird dough monster, I really wish I knew who animated that scene because it was really weird, like how the dough monster was dancing to the music, and it was like very rubber hosey, loosey goosey, ooey gooey. I'm trying to think of other terms to describe it. And then, of course, he consumes yeast, and the transformation was kind of interesting, kind of weird for this, this period of animation. Again, it gave me, because I always bring up this cartoons because it's one of my personal favorites, but I was getting some vibes of Lawyer Goodwill's transformation from A Case of the Stuttering Pig. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this cartoon. Again, if you want to learn more information about Harry Warren in particular, I talk about him more in previous commentaries because his name is going to be brought up a lot in these commentaries and on future ones as well. 42nd Street, the musical, is featured here several times in the cartoon. And I wish I had more to say about the title track, but there was never a commercial recording as per the research done by James Parton. So those are my thoughts for The Dish Ran Away with the Spoon. I hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you have a wonderful day. Make sure you clean all your dishes, whether you do it by hand or do it by a washing machine. And are your laundry dishes dirty? The Eagle Hand Laundry... Never mind. Now I'm talking about the Ducksters. Ignore all this. I'm just being silly. All right, folks. Have a good night. Stay clean. Stay healthy. And that's all, folks.
So thank you, Manny. Now, I guess in terms of a score and how I feel about this short, it's not a bad short. It's competent. It's bouncy. It's fun. It's got very unusual jokes, and it's a very weird short in certain parts. Like, why do these utensils have arms? I don't know. I guess they couldn't figure out a way to make these utensils do certain things without, having them without limbs. But anyway, I'm overthinking it. They were clearly working under a very tight budget. We've got lots of repeated animation within, like in cycles throughout this short, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, it works. So there's that. But there's nothing really that stands out in this one. Unlike, say, Shuffle Off the Buffalo or the next one, which would be We're in the Money, there's not even that. You just get one forgettable song, you get some wonderful dad jokes, some repeat animation, and that's pretty much it. So, 6 out of 10, I think, is probably a fair score here. Nothing remarkable, but nothing bad either, and you could certainly do worse than this one, and that's, of course, watch Buddy's Day Out. But anyway, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.